Hello folks, welcome to El Canal de Chano Jose. Today we're gonna give you a pointer or explain why it's so important not to add tap water into your engine. And especially on the heat time, the cars start using or the water starts evaporating, so we have to add more water. And some people just go to the closest spigot and they get some water and start adding it to the radiator or to the cooling system, and that's a really no, because what happens, this water has minerals, and those minerals, when you throw it into the engine and then you start your engine, you drive it around, and that heat, the water starts moving around, and aluminum and steel, what happens, it starts creating corrosion, and especially on steel engines. So what happens, it starts creating this coating on top of the metal. So now you're building up a coat, or the walls are getting all this rust built up, and then it starts creating this corrosion with the heat and the minerals. It starts clogging up stuff. So it's really important to know that the water from the tap water, if you add it to the engine, is going to create these problems. We're going to show you an example, and we're going to explain what kind of liquids you can add to the engine, especially on the heat time, so you keep a healthy engine. And even if you have to keep adding liquid, but you don't damage your engine, and we're going to show you what we mean by that. And well folks, the main cooling system on our car is a radiator, and these things, they got fins, and then so what happens is the water from the motor is circulated by the water pump. So the water pump is always moving and it's trying to circulate the water, but there's a component that opens and closes with temperature, and it's the thermostat. So as soon as the engine starts reaching a certain temperature, it starts opening, and then the water pump is always circulating, so it sends water. The water comes into the radiator, and then it goes through the whole radiator, and the fans are cooling down the radiator. So as heat comes in, it gets dissipated by the fans. So then by the time it starts going back into the engine, the liquid is already cooled down. So it's a cycle. So if the temperature is always being controlled by the thermostat, but there's a problem when we start adding liquids that we're not supposed to add to the radiator. For example, you just go grab the hose and then start adding water to the radiator. You're creating a problem, because this water comes with the minerals, and it has corrosion and all that bad stuff that you can put to the engine, especially to the steel engines and aluminum, doesn't matter. But what happens now, you're adding water to your radiator, so you think you're getting rid of a problem, that low level on the liquid, but now the engine is going to create heat, and that heat is going to create a reaction to the minerals, and all that bad stuff in the water is going to get attached to the walls of the engine, and then all that stuff is going to barely break down, or it's going to create more rust, and that's when you start seeing the water turn reddish and all this chocolate color and all that bad stuff. It starts ending up in the radiator, and that starts clogging up all your ports in your radiator. So now we have created a problem when we thought we were doing a good thing to the engine. So don't ever add tap water to the engine or your cooling system on your car, because you're gonna create a bigger problem in the future. What you can do is in case of an emergency, you can add distilled water. Distilled water has no minerals, no bad stuff for the engine. It's just water that is being cleaned out from minerals. That's why it's called distilled water. So I recommend to carry a gallon of distilled water in your car for two reasons. You can drink it, or you can add it to your cooling system on your car in case of an emergency. In case you lose some liquid, you can add it, tap it off, and then you can drive and get to the next point to check out what's happening to your car. So this is a thing I would carry in a car, because this is a dual purpose situation, drinkable and usable to your cooling system, and it won't damage your system. It will get you out of that problem. And if it stays on the system, it won't create problems, because it's not tap water, it has no minerals, anything, so you can leave it in there. You don't have to flush the system. Or you can get a 50-50 antifreeze or the brand recommended for your car. There's different colors, so I would recommend just using that whatever your engine uses, but use some lubricant. These antifreeze have lubricants specially made for the walls, so they lubricate, so no rust, no bad stuff starts building up inside the engine. So as long as you don't add tap water to the engine, you should have a healthy engine. So that's when we start creating an overheating problem. And also, when we start adding tap water, what we're creating, sometimes the sensors get clogged up and they don't read correctly. So if we're reading the dash and we're thinking that there's no problem on overheating, it's because the sensor is not reading correctly, because all that crap that builds around the sensor, it stops from reading what needs to be read. If the temperature is higher, this guy might not be reading it correctly because all that crap built up around it. So then by the time you realize that there's steam coming out of the hood, it's too late. You already have to pull over, and your dash is not telling you anything because there's no reading from the sensor because it's all clogged up in here. There's all the gunk built up. So now you overheated your engine and hopefully didn't do any damage. So you end up on the side of the road because you decided to tap water to your engine, and in a few months you created a problem that got you into the side of the road when you could just use distilled water or antifreeze, and it wouldn't done any damage to your engine. So we're going to show you some items how they look when you add tap water to the engine. So this is how a clean system looks like. This system has run with just distilled water and antifreeze. So it looks dirty, but it's clean. There's the sensor for the fan switch. So sometimes when that little port clogs up, this guy doesn't read, so then your fans never kick on. So that's why it's so important not to add tap water to the system, because all that corrosion starts building up on those areas where the water gets stuck, and then the sensors don't read correctly. So this is clean system, and we're going to show you what a dirty system looks like when it's been added, when the system was filled with tap water. So looks dirty, but this is actually a clean system. This was a healthy system. So just wanted to give you an idea how a clean system looks like. And this is why you don't use just water or tap water on your radiator or cooling system on your car, because these things happen. This starts clogging up ports. This is where the fan switch used to be, and the fan switch will not read properly, so the car would overheat, and because this cloggage inside. So that's why we don't recommend using just tap water or just water by itself. Add some antifreeze so it gets lubricated, and this kind of stuff never happens. So we're gonna puncture through it to show you what kind of stuff we're talking about. So there's the opening where the screwdriver punctured through, and as you can see, all that crap that build up around the sensor. Imagine inside the engine. So that's why we recommend using antifreeze with not just, and don't use tap water, because these are minerals that just start building up and it's gonna create problems. That's why we don't recommend using tap water. Use distilled water with antifreeze. So look at all that crap that has built up, and this is what we can see. Imagine what's inside in the whole block, and the cooling system and the radiator and the heater core. So that's why the car overheated, and you want to try to avoid that by using the right lubricant, which is antifreeze, and don't use tap water. And well, folks, we wanted to expose this info to help you out and avoid headaches and problems in the future. And especially as you can spend thousands of dollars just by for a repair when you could avoid it by not adding from the tap water to your engine. So what, like we said, is just use distilled water. Carry it 1 gallon in your car if you know your car uses a little bit liquid here and there. So use that distilled water, or go with the actual antifreeze. 50-50. If your car takes any kind of antifreeze, just 50-50. If it requires a special one, use the special antifreeze. But because that system is going to get contaminated and it's going to create you big headaches, especially on the radiator and the engine. When everything starts building up inside, it's a really headache. There's no end to it, and you're just going to have to replace the engine at one point because it's going to overheat, create you big problems. If you like this video, give us thumbs up, share it, and we'll see you soon with more videos here en el canal El Chano Jose.